So I've recently been doing a bunch of videos about habits, and here's a really important one to add to that list. Today I want to talk about cornerstone or key habits. If you get these in check, these can really impact your entire life. They're really, really fundamental. Watch this video to learn more. So in the world of habits, certain habits are more important than others. That's to say that certain things that you do on a regular basis can have a massive effect on the rest of your life, including other habits. In the book, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, he calls these really important habits cornerstone habits. I tend to refer to them as key habits. But the important thing to realize here is if you don't have these things in check, then your whole life can pretty much fall apart. I know that sounds like I'm being overly dramatic, but I personally have this, whereby if I don't have these cornerstone habits in check, then everything else seems to suffer. Let me give you an example. So one cornerstone habit or key habit for me is waking up early. For some reason, I find that if I wake up late, if I get up at 10 or 11 o'clock or whatever, I really rarely get what I need to do done during that day. I feel really lethargic, I feel lazy, I don't want to do the tasks that I have to do on that day. But also psychologically, I feel like I've lost half the day already and it's just a drain on me. For some reason, I don't know what it is, perhaps there's science to back it up, I don't know. If I get up late, I just don't perform very well. So for me, getting up early, making sure that I take the day by storm is a cornerstone habit that I really have to keep in check if I have hopes of keeping all my other habits in check. My business partner actually has a different cornerstone habit, which is exercise. He feels like that if he doesn't get enough exercise, if he doesn't go down the gym and get a sweat on or whatever, then other parts of his life suffer from that, including his work, his sleep suffers as well. He just struggles to concentrate, and also his happiness levels deplete. He finds that if he doesn't exercise, he doesn't feel as happy. And of course, this causes a huge chain reaction, because if you don't feel happy, you don't feel productive, or in my case, if you feel lethargic and you don't want to do anything, then it's really difficult to see your other habits through. It's really difficult to sit down and write a blog post if you're feeling knackered. It's really difficult to get in front of the camera if you're not feeling happy, if you're feeling miserable, to fake it. That's the thing about these habits, they kind of cascade down into all areas of your life. So it's really worth trying to figure out what they are for you and taking care of them. Another keystone habit that lots of people have is meditation. Lots of people swear by this. They start their day by doing 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or even 1 or 2 hours worth of meditation. I have a business friend of mine who swears by meditation. He says that it makes him more productive, that helps him keep his temper, helps him be more aware and more present to the moment. That's a keystone habit for him. Another pretty common keystone habit, and one that actually affects me too, is nailing that first task of the day. I place a lot of emphasis in making sure that when I sit down for that first task of the day, I really focus, I really get into a state of deep work, and I really want to make sure I finish that and do a good job of it, because that starts the chain of momentum for my day. Kind of sets me off onto the right psychological path. Feels really good. You tick that thing off and then you get on to the next thing. I find that if I can really hammer that first task of the day, then I'm probably going to have a good day. On the flip side, I find if I really don't nail that first task of the day, let's say I'm chatting to other people, I haven't got any focus on it, I'm kind of thinking about other stuff and then jumping back to it, and it's dragging on for hours and hours, then that tends to affect the rest of my day too. The rest of my day just doesn't flow as well, don't get as much done. It's really hard for me to regain that focus. Another keystone habit that many people have is journaling. They like doing 10 or 15 minutes worth of writing to get their thoughts off their chest, to write down and think through problems that they have and come up with action plans and strategies. For some reason, and I don't actually know the scientific reason for this, but writing things down can really help clarify where you're going, what you're doing, what steps you need to take next. Anything that isn't quite clear in your mind. They say that they're lost unless they write stuff down, and it keeps their whole life organized. So that's a keystone habit for them. Another keystone habit that many people have is reading. They read non-fiction books to work through problems and learn from people that have lived before them. There are many, many more keystone habits that people have, and it's very subjective, so you might have some of your own that are unique to you. But the other thing about keystone habits is that it doesn't actually just have to be an activity, it can be when you do that activity too. As an example of this, I used to do my workout, my training at the gym in the evening, and I noticed as I was doing this and before I went to the gym that it was a real struggle. It was a real drain on my willpower. So I did a quick experiment, because working out for me is very, very important. That also is a keystone habit for me. So I wanted to put that at the start of the day to see how that affected me. And it turns out that if I exercise earlier in the day, that has a much more positive cascading effect for me. If I work out earlier in the day, I feel energized, I feel motivated and ready to go when I hit the office. So it's not just doing the habit, it's also the context in which the habit is done, the time of day and where it is that can make a big difference for you. There are way more variables than just the habit itself, and you need to experiment to find out what those variables should be for you. So I've touched on this earlier, but these cornerstone habits are subjective, and it requires a little bit of awareness and examination of how your days are going. See, I can't tell you that your keystone habit is to work out or to wake up early. I also can't say that everybody should wake up early or everybody should work out. You see, we're all individual, and what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for you. But what I suggest you do is, on days where things are going really, really well, on days where you're getting lots of stuff done, you're feeling good, you're happy, you get your workout done, whatever it is for you that makes a good day, on those days, try and look at patterns. Try and understand, what is it that made this day so good? And over time, as you build up a picture of good days, you might see things that are consistent on those days. That's probably your keystone habit. The opposite is also true. If you start noticing bad days, days where you're not feeling very well, you don't get much done, what's going on those days? Is there something that those days have in common? Is there something you can kind of put your finger on and be like, okay, listen, I went to bed at 2 a.m. And that's why this day sucked. A cornerstone habit for me is to go to bed early and get a full 8 hours rest. Really, if I was going to put this into one sentence, I'd say it's all about just paying more attention. Paying attention to what really works well for you and what doesn't. Because often we don't really notice these things, they just happen to us and we don't look at the bigger picture. Final thing I'd say is that once you've identified a cornerstone habit, then you need to try and work on it. You need to get that nailed. I would recommend you only work on one habit at a time, because instilling new habits can take quite a lot of willpower, can be quite demanding psychologically. And I think it's quite likely that if you take on like 3 or 4 at any given time, then you'll just fail and none of those will stick. Your willpower will just deplete and that'll be game over and you have to start again. So I think a better approach to this is to take on one for a period of time, get that habit stuck, and then do what's called habit stacking, which is then you'd start adding another habit on top of that, and then another. And over time, you can start stacking these habits and building up your perfect day. So I think the key takeaway for this is to take a look at your life, take a look at what's working, identify those cornerstone habits, if you have any, and really work on nailing those. You can nail those one at a time, and over time, you'll start building up this really good habitual daily routine that you go for that really helps you get your work done and perform to a high level. Good luck with your habit building. I hope it goes well, and if you do manage to build any cornerstone habits, if you do manage to implement any habits into your life that give you a positive influence and are doing well for you, then leave me a comment below because I'd love to hear from you. I hope you found this video useful. Like this video, subscribe to the channel if you did, and I'll see you again next time.